Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 10 real desert island composers. Recently, some viewers asked me the question, what would I take to my desert island? This question, for those of you who are new to classical music, is one of these crazy sort of, well, if you were marooned on a desert island and could only have one piece of music for the rest of your life, what would it be? Or something like that, or until you got rescued. I don't know. I think the whole thing is kind of stupid. But the question, of course, really is, what is your favorite? I mean, that's another way to say it, which is not stupid. And, the desert island frame is just one of those perversities that somehow managed to, catch hold. And now there's whole series of things of your desert island discs, the 5 things that you would, like to have if you could only have 5. I mean, we do a lot on this channel. It's fun to do. It's fun to do, just asking people what their favorite things are. But I decided, a lot of people ask the question. I thought I'd take it more seriously. First of all, if I were marooned on a desert island with the capacity to listen to something, which presumes electricity at least, batteries, or I don't know, some leftovers from my shipwreck or plane crash that, could generate power, I would never have a single composer. I have my whole iPhone. My iPhone has 120 gigs of music on it. So I've got plenty of music for the rest of my life. I wanted to take the question very seriously and say, if I could only have one composer on my desert island, one body of music, what would I want it to be? I don't know how long I'm going to be stuck on my desert island. I may never get rescued. I may get rescued rather soon. But I would like to have an insurance policy. And what I mean by that is composers who were extremely high quality, extremely productive, and usually people think that those two things are mutually incompatible. If a composer writes lots and lots and lots of music, it can't all be that good, or it must all be uniform. So I had some criteria. The composers had to be extremely productive. They had to write masterpieces in every musical form available to them, or most of them. I mean, in a general sense, chamber, orchestral, vocal, that kind of stuff. Opera, if they did opera or oratorio, that kind of stuff. So I have composers who did all of those things, and they were incredibly prolific, but incredibly consistent. Composers whose work constantly interests me and leads to new discoveries of things that I wasn't as familiar with as I might have been. And finally, I had to eliminate the entire Baroque period, because Baroque music all has continuo, and that would drive me crazy. It may not drive you crazy, but it doesn't matter to me if they're writing chamber music or orchestral music or vocal music. You've got a harpsichord wanging away at the bottom on every single piece you listen to, just about every single piece. And to me, that's not enough to sustain me for a lifetime on a desert island, where I need to have contrast. That's the point. I mean, what do you want if you're going to be on a desert island? You want contrast. You need to be distracted. You need to have variety in your life. But you can only have one composer. That's the thing. So who is that one composer? Here is my list of those one composers, any one of which I would be delighted to be marooned on a desert island, as long as I had their complete works, or at least a large body of their complete works. I mean, as much as I could get my hands on at the time of the incident in question. So, the list. Number 1, Villa-Lobos. Yeah, he just wrote scads and scads and scads of music, and so much of it is incredibly original. But there's like a dozen symphonies, there's the Bachianas Brasileiras, there's the Choros stuff, there's chamber music all over the place, there's like a dozen, 14 or something, string quartets, trillions of them. There's vocal music, there's vocal music included in the orchestral works, there's just, tone poems, and oh my God, film scores, just unbelievable quantities of music, and most of it isn't well known at all. So I would have a wonderful time, and all the time in the world to take my time discovering all these pieces that I didn't know well or hadn't heard before. It's just a geyser of voluptuous and delightful music. And if I'm on a desert island, I mean, it's kind of tropical. I mean, Villa-Lobos is kind of tropical. The music probably would fit the scenery quite nicely. So Villa-Lobos is on the list. Next, Schubert, of course. Not only do you have like 600 or 700 songs, but you've got symphonies and string quartets and piano sonatas and operas. Yes, operas and sacred music. I mean, anything that could be done in the music of his day, Schubert did. The only thing we don't have are like ballets, but everybody gets a pass on one grouping of things. You've got incidental music. Schubert is just phenomenally wonderful. And certainly there's enough there to keep you busy for like your entire stay on the desert island in question. So that's number 2. Number 3, Darius Milhaud. Oh, God, he wrote hundreds and hundreds of pieces. A lot of them haven't even been recorded yet. You'd have to be stuck on your desert island with a way to get updates, as more things pop up. But he's another composer who was fascinatingly original. I mean, he wrote a passel of symphonies, a dozen or more of those, and, boatloads of orchestral works, a zillion concertos, fabulous, unique pieces, the ballet, La Création du Monde, Le Boeuf sur le Toit, things that are just sui generis. They just are what they are. His 6 tiny symphonies, his strange little opera minute, his little operas and big operas, the Oresteia, not the Oresteia, whatever that other thing was that he did. The KO4, and, is that the Oresteia? Maybe it is. But all of that stuff is really phenomenal. I mean, Milhaud is a terribly, terribly underrated composer. I mean, there's a bunch of string quartets. There's an octet that consists of 2 string quartets played simultaneously. I mean, wow, what a lifetime of fun and frolic you would have stuck on your desert island, sipping on your coconut and listening to Milhaud. Really cool stuff. So Milhaud definitely. Then Beethoven. Okay, yeah, you got to do Beethoven, right? I mean, Beethoven really did compose a lifetime of music, and he wrote just about every possible form. I mean, he wrote ballets. He did write an opera. You want to have a generous hunk in each category. So there's not like a generous hunk of Beethoven ballets or a generous hunk of Beethoven operas, but there's lots of vocal music, and sacred music and choruses and things like that. So it all fits, it all adds up. And then, of course, there's all the stuff that Beethoven did, the quartets, the symphonies, the other chamber works, So, yeah, he could keep you busy. The only problem with Beethoven is that you probably already know it. You might want more variety if you're stuck on your desert island. But, Beethoven's okay. Dvořák. Dvořák is still the great underrated genius of the second half of the 20th century, 19th century, because he did everything, and he did it superbly. You've got symphonies, you've got tone poems, you've got overtures, you've got other orchestral works and suites. You have marvelous chamber music. You've got 14 string quartets, you've got piano trios, you've got quintets and sextets, and just a huge pile of chamber music, some of which is absolutely extraordinary. The Dumke trio, the bagatelles for harmonium and string trio, and just wonderful stuff. And you've got amazing sacred music. There's the Requiem and the Stabat Mater and the Te Deum. You've got huge choral works that are glorious, absolutely glorious. There's the Spectre's Bride. There's Saint Ludmila. You've got operas which are totally underrated, but people are beginning to realize are fabulous. I mean, everybody loves Rusalka, but there's also the Jacobin, which is a deliciously Mozartian comic opera, and sensitive and humane, and Dmitri, which is the sequel to Boris Godunov, and there's an Armida, his last opera, and you've got the Kate and the Devil, or the Devil and Kate, however you do it, which is one of the great comic operas from the second half of the end of the 19th century, and there aren't a lot of great comic operas. It's just an unbelievably high quality body of work. And a lot of it is very, very little known. I could spend the rest of my life with Dvořák and have no problem at all. After Dvořák, Hindemith. Yeah, Hindemith. We're doing Hindemith in random reviews from the overflow room right now. And I hope you're beginning to realize just what an exceptional legacy that is. Oh my gosh. He wrote sonatas for every single instrument. He wrote a bunch of symphonies and a pile of orchestral works and a slew of operas and everything from, expressionist nightmare music to rather philosophical and sober Kepler type operas. There's solo piano music, there's solo violin and string music, there's string quartets, and wow, just tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of music. A lot of which is, again, virtually unknown. So he's definitely somebody who's worth discovering on your desert island. Mozart is, obviously. Now, Mozart, of course, is a known quantity. And he did incredible things in every possible medium in his life. There's a lot of early Mozart that's very good that people don't know. There's a lot of it that also isn't so great. But, you get to choose. Sit on your island, under your umbrella, on your beach chair, whatever you've got, in your lean-to, and go through the early Mozart symphonies and try and figure out what the really distinguished ones are. It would be really fun. And oh my goodness, there's all that wind music and stuff that Mozart did better than anybody, and the incredible Divertimento in E flat for string trio, which is like the greatest work ever for string trio. I mean, there's just an endless source of musical joy beyond the pieces that we all know and love, and the operas, of course, that we know, and no one knows the earlier operas. There's huge pile of them there. I mean, you could spend a year on your island just getting through Mitridate, Re di Ponto, or one of those things. La Finta Giardiniera. Oh my God. So yeah, there's a lot there. It'll keep you busy, I guarantee it. After Mozart, Liszt. Yes, Liszt. Everybody thinks of Liszt as some sort of, sometimes tacky, vulgar piano guy, right? Well, we now know that the complete piano works are certainly enough for a lifetime of listening. And, of course, the symphonic poems and his piano concertos and the Faust and Dante symphonies, orchestral works, tons of orchestral music that people really don't know. I mean, there's lots and lots of it. Some of it fascinating. Really, really interesting. The two legends that have existed, piano versions and orchestral versions, the Hungarian Rhapsodies. So you've got, chamber works, and you've got his creepy late stuff, and you've got a huge body of choral music. You've got excellent Catholic liturgical music, his Grainer Mass, which is like amazing, really, really amazing, and the oratorio, I call it the Adventures of Saint Elizabeth, but it's not that. It's the story of Saint Elizabeth, or we just call it Saint Elizabeth. That's great. Christus bores me to tears, but Saint Elizabeth is amazing. There's so much more music than people realize. And the fascinating thing about spending a lifetime listening to Liszt is that he revised things constantly. So everything exists in like dozens of versions. And he was always borrowing things, one thing from another. I mean, there's the transcendental etude Mazeppa, and there's the tone poem Mazeppa, and they use the same thematic material, but they're quite different in other ways. So it's fascinating to make comparisons within his body of work. You've got a lifetime of musicology you can indulge in, of comparisons and trying to ferret out the threads of continuity from one work to the next, and the borrowings and reborrowings. And oh my God, it's an endless source of amusement. It's a Rubik's Cube of music. You can just go and diddle it, forever on your island. And it would be just really, it might keep you sane or not. After Liszt, Martinů. People really don't realize just how amazing Martinů was. I mean, he wrote a pile of music. There's several hundred works in every conceivable form, and they are all in his very personal style. I mean, he had a real style, a real voice. People don't credit the fact that if you're going to be a very prolific composer, you have to find certain formulae that will work for you in writing. It's impossible to make every single work different from every other work. You can't do like, Schoenberg and have every piece sound like nothing else that came before it, or Mahler, and only write 9 or 10 symphonies in your spare time, and have each one be a cosmos in terms of content, in terms of variety of content and color and register. Amazing, but each piece is a masterpiece, an individual masterpiece. That's hard, and that takes time. And so if you're going to do like the Baroque composers did, which is like write a cantata every week or 10 concertos a day or whatever you did, like Bach or Vivaldi or Handel did, you need a formula, and you're going to use the formula. The question is not that you use the formulas, because it's inevitable. The question is, how well do you use them, and how much musical expression and variety can you pack into your somewhat formulaic music? Well, Martinů, once he reached his maturity, had a formula. He had harmonic procedures that he stuck to. He had, this constant syncopated rhythmic sort of thing, his approach to rhythm. His handling of form was pretty straightforward. I mean, it was basically sonata form without development section, and his more, involved and intricate outer movements in large works like symphonies and concertos. But it worked fabulously because all of it was personal to him. And he was able to use it to create a body of literature that was extraordinarily wide-ranging. It's everything in Martinů. There's symphonies, there's a couple dozen concertos at various times, whether they're solo or multiple soloists. There's his symphonies, his orchestral pieces, gorgeous orchestral pieces, of all types, and piles of chamber music, just epic piles of chamber music. There's lots of opera. Tons of vocal music, cantatas, and interesting things that have no, other description. It's a lifetime of musical joy for you to get to know. So Martinů definitely belongs on that list of composers I could take to my desert island and just spend the rest of my life exploring and enjoying, and going back and re-exploring. And then last but not least, of course, need I even say it, Haydn. I mean, Haydn. Haydn never wrote a bad piece of music, never in his life. And you've got, 107 symphonies and 68 and a half string quartets and 40 some odd piano trios and 60 piano sonatas. Oh my God, just amazing. And some very good operas, maybe not as great as Mozart's, but they're very good. And there are some masterpieces. L'isola disabitata is amazing. L'Infedeltà delusa, whatever it's called, is very, very funny and delicious. His last operas, Armida and Orfeo. You've got his masses, his sacred music is extraordinary. The oratorios. I mean, yes, it's a lifetime. It's a lifetime that will keep you going until that rescue ship arrives to take you home. And that's the idea. You've got to get through it, however long it's going to last. And these 10 composers will ensure that you will always have enough to listen to and amuse yourself with until your rescue arrives. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.